What if one of the most famous stories about our ancient ancestors, a tale carved in stone and wood for 30 years, was just proven wrong? And what if this correction doesn't just change a date, but reshapes who we think were the true innovators of the Stone Age? For nearly 3 decades, we've marveled at the Schöningen spears. Found in Germany, these incredible wooden weapons were hailed as evidence of early human ingenuity, dating back a staggering 300,000 to 400,000 years. We pictured Homo heidelbergensis, our distant ancestor, crafting these tools. But a new study, hot off the presses in May 2025, has thrown a massive archaeological curveball. These spears, they're 100,000 years younger than we thought. And that changes everything because it means they were likely made not by our direct ancestors, but by Neanderthals. Think about it. For years, the Schöningen spears were the poster child for surprisingly early human sophistication. Now that spotlight shifts to our often underestimated cousins, the Neanderthals. And here's the kicker. Even at 200,000 years old, these are still the earliest completely preserved hunting weapons known anywhere on Earth. So what does this mean for the story of human evolution, and specifically for the reputation of Neanderthals? It means they were capable of high-tech hunting and complex social cooperation far earlier than many suspected, potentially on par with early Homo sapiens. This isn't just a new date, it's a new chapter in prehistory. Let's rewind a bit to understand why this is such a big deal. Picture this. It's the 1990s, and in a coal mine in Schöningen, Germany, archaeologists strike gold. Or rather, they strike wood, ancient wood. Between 1994 and 1999, they unearthed a treasure trove at a lair nicknamed the Spear Horizon. We're talking about 8 complete wooden spears, some fragments of others, thousands of animal bones, and stone tools. The site was an ancient lakeshore, and the soggy, waterlogged clay preserved these organic artifacts in stunning condition. Finding intact Paleolithic wood is like finding a needle in a prehistoric haystack. It just doesn't happen often. These weren't just crude sticks. They were 6 to 8 foot long javelins, carved from spruce and pine, still sharp. They were found amidst the butchered remains of nearly 50 horses. The original excavator, Hartmut Thiem, painted a vivid picture. A band of Homo heidelbergensis, 300,000 or more years ago, stalking horses, using the lake as a natural trap, felling them with well-aimed throws. It was a cinematic scene, Stone Age hunters, masters of their domain. It made headlines proving ancient humans were capable of complex hunts and sophisticated tool-making, behaviors once thought far beyond them. Later research tweaked the picture a bit, suggesting these were multiple hunting trips over time, not one single massacre. But the core idea remained: very ancient humans, very advanced weapons. For decades, museum visitors learned this story. But science is always digging deeper, and the story was about to get a major rewrite. So how do you redate something that's been a textbook example for so long? And why did it take decades? The original age estimates for Schöningen relied on indirect clues. For example, scientists looked at pollen fossils found in layers below the spears and matched them to known warm climate periods from hundreds of thousands of years ago. This pointed to an age around 300,000 years or older, making Homo heidelbergensis the prime suspect. But this method always had its uncertainties, and Schöningen's age was a hot topic among experts. It always seemed a bit of an outlier. These tools were almost too good for that age. Could hominins that ancient really craft such well-balanced and effective weapons? Enter Dr. Gerard Hudson and his colleagues. Their new study, published in Science Advances in May 2025, didn't just re-examine old data, they used a different, more direct approach. Instead of dating layers above or below, they directly dated materials from the same layer as the spears. They used a technique called amino acid geochronology. Think of it as a molecular clock. It measures the slow chemical breakdown of proteins in fossils. By examining these changes in tiny snail shells, little crustaceans, and even horse teeth found right alongside the weapons, they could calculate how long those remains had been in the ground. The answer came back loud and clear: roughly 200,000 years old. Not 300,000, not 400,000, 200,000. This new age places the Schöningen spears squarely in marine isotope stage 7, a different warm period, and crucially, smack in the middle of the Neanderthal era in Europe. As the researchers put it, their dating corrects this mismatch and aligns the Schöningen spears within the time frame of European Neanderthals and the Middle Paleolithic. Suddenly, the outlier status vanished. The spear makers weren't some enigmatic proto-human anymore. They were almost certainly Neanderthals. And why Neanderthals? Well, Homo sapiens, our species, had only just emerged in Africa around that time and hadn't made any significant moves into Europe. Neanderthals, however, were well established in Europe 200,000 years ago. Now, science is all about rigor. The researchers themselves acknowledge their technique differs from prior methods. Some scientists, like archaeologist Thomas Terberger, who wasn't involved in this new study, find the arguments interesting but want more research, perhaps dating other materials or sites, to be absolutely sure. And that's fair. Science progresses through challenge and verification. But this new paper presents a very compelling case. It suggests that for decades we might have misattributed one of the most iconic archaeological finds. So if Neanderthals made these spears, what does that tell us about them? Get ready to upgrade your image of Neanderthals because this is where it gets really interesting. First, these spears scream technological skill. They weren't just sharpened sticks. Each one was carved from the base of a straight conifer trunk, usually spruce or pine. They were often sharpened at both ends. And here's a killer detail. The heaviest part is towards the front tip. Why does that matter? It's the same design principle used in modern javelins to make them fly straight and true. These were sophisticated, and they weren't just for poking. Experiments with replicas, thrown by skilled athletes, showed these spears could reliably hit targets 15 to 20 meters away with enough force to kill large prey. 15 to 20 meters. That shatters the old myth that Neanderthals could only hunt by getting dangerously close to their prey. No, these guys likely had a flexible arsenal, including ranged weapons. As Dr. Hudson remarked, the Schöningen spears are pretty sophisticated for something that old. Even if we thought they were 300,000 years old and made by H. heidelbergensis, they were remarkable. At 200,000 years old and made by Neanderthals, they are a testament to Neanderthal ingenuity. But perhaps even more mind-blowing are the social and cognitive implications. Hunting large game, especially entire herds of horses, we're talking about those 50 horse skeletons, is not a one-person job. It demands planning, communication, and serious teamwork. The new study authors proposed Schöningen was an ambush hunting ground at which entire horse family groups were targeted, killed, and butchered. Imagine it, coordinated teams. They understood horse behavior, using the lake or muddy shoreline as a natural trap. Some might have driven the horses, while others lay in wait, spears ready. Think of how lions coordinate to hunt zebras. To pull this off consistently, Neanderthals needed wholly collaborative and group-minded efforts, with a communal set of objectives. This level of coordination, this kind of teamwork, was once thought to be the special sauce that only Homo sapiens truly mastered. But finding it in Neanderthals, 200,000 years ago, completely challenges that view. It suggests that by the mid-Middle Pleistocene, Neanderthal societies were already capable of complex division of labor, teaching skills, and working towards shared goals. Dr. Hudson puts it bluntly. By around 200,000 years ago at Schöningen, Neanderthals started to cooperate in new ways for hunting and other complex social behaviors, probably on par with early Homo sapiens. On par with early Homo sapiens. Let that sink in. Far from being brutish scavengers, the Schöningen Neanderthals emerge as clever, organized hunters, like a Pleistocene Special Forces team. This redating doesn't just swap one hominin species for another. It sends ripples through our understanding of technological evolution. If we accept this new 200,000-year date, it tightens up the timeline for when complex spear hunting appears. Does this mean earlier humans like Homo heidelbergensis didn't use spears or hunt in groups? Not necessarily. Wood rarely survives, so earlier instances could simply be lost to time. In fact, there's a tantalizing clue, the Clacton spear point. It's a broken tip of a wooden spear found in England, and it's about 400,000 years old. Dr. Hudson acknowledges this, saying, "It's very possible that humans were hunting with spears 400,000 years ago. So H. heidelbergensis probably knew how to make and use a basic spear. But what might have been different, what Schöningen shows, is the intensification of cooperative hunting. Perhaps 400,000 years ago, spear use was more opportunistic, an individual hunter taking a shot. But by 200,000 years ago, as seen at Schöningen, Neanderthals had elevated it to a highly coordinated, strategic, and routine practice. Hudson suggests that the highly social behaviors that we see at Schöningen maybe did not exist 400,000 years ago. So Schöningen could mark a crucial threshold, and this fits a broader pattern. We see other Neanderthal sites, younger than Schöningen, that also show group hunting of large animals. Sites in Europe dated to between roughly 130,000 and 50,000 years ago have yielded mass kills of bison, deer, even mammoths. For instance, at La Côte de Saint-Brelade in Jersey, Neanderthals apparently drove mammoths and woolly rhinos off a cliff around 180,000 years ago. Another site in France shows Neanderthals ambushing bison about 120,000 years ago. With Schöningen now redated to 200,000 years, it perfectly bridges the gap between that lone Clacton spear tip at 400,000 years and these younger Neanderthal mega-hunts. It paints a picture of gradual development, isolated spear use by 400,000 years ago, emerging sophisticated teamwork by 200,000 years ago at Schöningen, and widespread, complex hunting tactics by 100,000 years ago. And what's really crucial here is that all of this seems to have happened independently of modern humans. Neanderthals didn't need us to teach them how to hunt or make complex tools. In fact, research keeps pushing back the timeline for Neanderthal innovations. Just a week before this Schöningen study dropped, another team announced an 80,000-year-old bone spear tip from a Russian cave, the oldest such bone weapon in Europe, also made by Neanderthals. It was carved from a bison leg bone, honed to a point, and even glued to a shaft with bitumen tar. That's 30,000 years before Homo sapiens even reached Europe. These findings, Schöningen's wooden arsenal and this Russian bone spear, are fundamentally changing the image of Neanderthals. Of course, big revisions like this always raise new questions. Why was the earlier age estimate for Schöningen so far off? Was it an error in correlating pollen and climate data? Did the site experience some mixing of sediments? The new study authors are confident in their amino acid dating and relook at the site's stratigraphy, placing it in a warmer period around 200,000 years ago. But scientists will likely revisit other sites dated by similar old methods, just to be sure. It's a reminder that all dating methods have margins of error, especially when you're peering this deep into the past. And who exactly were these Schöningen hunters? Neanderthal is a useful term, but human evolution back then was messy. Around 200,000 years ago, Europe was populated by what some call early Neanderthals. They had many classic Neanderthal traits, but fossils from this specific period are scarce. Without actual hominin bones at Schöningen, we rely on the tools. And the stone tools found there are reportedly more Middle Paleolithic in style, typically associated with Neanderthals, rather than the older Acheulean hand axe culture of Homo heidelbergensis. This lines up beautifully with the new date. If so, it just adds to the picture of Neanderthals as incredibly adaptable, exploiting diverse resources, including massive herbivores, very early in their long history on this planet. So why does a story about scientists were wrong about ancient spears capture our imagination so intensely? Well, there's the inherent drama, isn't there? It's not every day that a textbook tale of human origins gets such a substantial rewrite. We had an iconic find attributed for decades to one ancestor, and it turns out it was made by our Neanderthal cousins instead. Being off by 100,000 years is a huge deal in paleochronology. It's humbling and, frankly, thrilling for researchers to realize that a famous site they thought they understood was actually telling a different story. This is scientific self-correction in action, and it means giving credit where credit is due, to the Neanderthals. There's a kind of poetic justice here. For so long, Neanderthals were undervalued, painted as dim-witted brutes. Even in the original Schöningen narrative, they were excluded because the spears were thought to be too old for them. Now, they step right into the spotlight as the masterminds behind one of prehistory's greatest hunting camps. It's another nail in the coffin for the outdated caricature of Neanderthals. As one science writer quipped, Schöningen's new story contributes to revised views of Neanderthals as our clever and capable cousins. And for us, the curious public, the Schöningen spears have always been deeply compelling. They let our imaginations travel back in time. You can almost feel the damp chill of that ancient lakeshore, hear the rustle of hunters in the reeds, see that wooden spear arcing through the air. These artifacts are so tangible. A spear isn't just a stone flake, it's a weapon. We instantly get its purpose, the intent behind it. The fact that these are 200,000 years old just boggles the mind. It connects us across an immense gulf of time. Now add the twist that for a huge chunk of that time, we had their story wrong. It's like an ancient whodunit where new forensic evidence fingers a different culprit. Ultimately, the Schöningen update fascinates because it pokes at those big existential questions. When did humans, broadly speaking, first develop cultures of cooperation? When did we become dominant hunters, not just scavengers? These spears and the horses that fell to them mark a profound milestone. They reflect a mastery over the environment that foreshadows what our own species would eventually achieve. The new research strongly suggests Neanderthals hit this cultural breakthrough, coordinated group hunting, long before modern humans were a major presence in their world. It hints that the roots of our complex social behaviors run deeper than we thought, extending to our parallel hominin lineages. It makes you wonder about their lives. Did they teach their young how to carve and throw? Did they share stories around the fire after a successful hunt? The Schöningen spears have always been a tantalizing piece in the puzzle of human evolution. Now, with a new age and a new identity, they fit differently, revealing a clearer, more fascinating picture of the past, while reminding us that some pieces can and will continue to shift. So these incredible weapons, once symbols of our own ancestors' early ingenuity, now stand as monuments to Neanderthal brilliance, invented not by us, but by them. And them, it turns out, were a lot more like us than we ever gave them credit for. If we were off by 100,000 years on this one, what other known facts are just waiting to be rewritten? Stick with deep research to find out. You won't believe what we're digging into next.